recorded. Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome to AAUW's California GovTrack. This is session 2, Exploring Political Careers. Elevating the next generation of women in political leadership. Next slide, Shauna. All right. So I wanted to have a word from our chair of GovTrack, Shauna Ruley. And I wanted to let you know who your GovTrack hosts are. So, Dr. Becky Gomez and myself, Arnidra Jordan. So I'm gonna let Shauna and Becky will introduce herself because she's actually on the panel today. So she'll introduce herself in a few minutes. But I'll let Shauna welcome you all because this is hard work. And so it's hard work for everyone because it's hard work to put this together. And it's hard work for you all because you have to come on a Saturday. So we are thankful that you are here on a Saturday. You could be doing anything and you're here with us. Shauna?
Thanks, Arnidra. Welcome back, girls. Uh, we are very excited today to have a panel discussion with some legislators and leaders. I'm just thrilled that they've joined us, and this is your opportunity to listen to various career paths that you might take if you decide to go into public service. And you'll also have a time to engage with them during our Q&A session. So Arnidra, I don't mean to, if you were about to say this, I apologize in advance, but please go ahead and take some notes. Write down the name of the speaker and your question and have that ready for the Q&A, because I think that's probably going to be the best part of this session today, is to listen and engage with our speakers. So thanks for coming back.
All right, next slide for me. All right, so before we go over the agenda, I'm going to let you guys read the agenda silently to yourselves, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, and then I will reiterate the agenda. So, as I said, my name is Arnidra Jordan, and I'm honored to be your facilitator today. So, a little bit about myself: I'm a political science professor at West Los Angeles College, where I have the privilege of engaging with students on the complexities of political systems and theories. In addition to my role at as a college professor, I am a project manager at Black Women for Wellness. BWW, we hold the distinction of being the oldest Black owned reproductive justice firm in Los Angeles County. So, what do we do? Our work is dedicated to advocating for the health and well being of Black women and girls through policy, education, and community outreach. So, I'm excited to bring my educational and advocacy experiences to our discussions and look forward to a productive and enlightening session together today. Like Shauna said, yes, please make sure you have your electronic device or pen and paper if you're from that generation that likes pen and paper out to take notes and write down your questions so that you can be prepared for the Q&A. So I also wanted to tell you a little bit about the GovTrack initiative, why it's important that we're all here today. So, the GovTrack program is an initiative that stands at the forefront of change and empowerment in the public policy landscape. So, as your facilitator today, I am here to guide, support, and inspire you as we embark on this incredible journey. I'm talking to colleagues about what it's like to be in the public sector. So let's go over the agenda so you know what we're doing this morning. So we're going to do our welcome, which Shauna and I just did. We're going to look at the student survey that you all completed. Then we're going to have our panel. Our speakers today are Dr. Rebecca Becky Gomez. She's the council member in the city of Tustin, and she's also formerly the Orange County Board of Education trustee Area 1. She retired from that position. Heather Ferbert, San Diego Chief Deputy City Attorney. Angela Blanchard, Partner Political Solutions. Dr. Ayanna Davis. Um, there's something on the screen. Yeah.
Sorry
Dr.
about that.
Davis, that's okay. VP of Governing Board of Trustees for Compton Unified School District, and Griselda Ramirez, Senior Director of External Affairs for the office, um, Chairwoman Vargas. And then we'll have some Q&A, and then we'll talk about homework. And we're also probably going to have breakout rooms so you can discuss. I don't want you to leave here without discussing and really taking a deep dive into the issues that we spoke about today. So next slide, please. All right. So here's our top 5, exploring the issues. Okay. So this is the student um survey results. And I wrote out yesterday, I said I wanted to take notes on this so we could talk about what equity is and what voting rights mean, what reproductive justice right means, criminal justice and gun control, because these were your top 5 issues. These are the top 5 issues that concern you as high school students. So um, I researched them last night, and so we'll start with gender equity. So the topic, gender equity. So if you I don't know how many of you actually put this on the survey, but it talks about ensuring that all genders have equal opportunities and rights in every aspect of life, from education to jobs, meaning that not if you apply for a job, it should be on the fairness of if you are capable of that job, not based on your gender, not based on your race, but are you capable of it? It's about breaking down stereotypes and barriers that prevent people from achieving their potential because of their gender. Imagine a world where your gender doesn't dictate your future. That's the goal. That's gender equity. Racial equity. This topic tackles the systematic inequalities that affect people based on their race. It's about creating a society where your race doesn't determine your health, wealth, or opportunities. We aim for a world where everyone's culture and background is celebrated and not a cause for discrimination. Pay equity. Pay equity is the fight to ensure everyone gets equal pay for equal work, regardless of your gender, race, or any other factor. It's about fairness in the workplace, where your effort and achievements, not just your background, determine your salary. LGBTQ rights. This is about ensuring that all people of all sexual orientations and gender identities have the same rights and protection as everyone else, from marriage to healthcare. It's a fight for acceptance, respect, and equality in every part of life. Voting rights and access. The right to vote is the cornerstone of democracy, but not everyone has easy access to this right. This I'm sorry. This issue focuses on removing barriers to voting, ensuring every eligible person can easily cast their vote and have a say in their government. Reproductive rights. So, reproductive rights is the right to make choices about one's own reproductive health and family planning. It is also the right to have contraception, abortion services, and quality health care. It's about having control over your own body and life decisions. Criminal justice. This area examines the fairness and effectiveness of our legal and penal systems. It's about addressing the issues of overall policing, mass incarceration, and ensuring that justice is served equally to all, regardless of background. And then gun control. Gun control is about creating laws and policies to prevent gun violence and ensure public safety. It involves debates over the right to bear arms versus the need to protect communities from mass shootings and gun related accidents. Each of these topics are crucial for building an equitable and fair society. They touch on fundamental rights and the ongoing right for fairness, making them highly relevant for young people who are passionate about shaping this our future. So, Shauna, you want to go to the next slide for me because it is 10:09 and we want to get started with our guest speakers. So, we are going to start with our panel discussion, women and leadership careers. So, let's go to the next slide. And if you can you highlight, Do you know how to highlight the speakers for me so that they come onto the screen as I'm introducing them? Because I'm going to ask Dr. Um, Rebecca Becky Gomez to go first and introduce herself. Can you pin the speaker for me?
While she's doing that, I'll go ahead and get started just so that we can
Okay.
stay on time.
Okay.
I'll try to be as quick as possible to leave more room for the
You have
discussion, but
1 minute.
okay.
Are you there? Okay, let me see if I can do it. Okay, I got it. There you go. There is
All
Dr.
right. Well, welcome everyone. I met some of you last week as I was moderating last week. But I grew up in Whittier, California, which is in LA County. I love sports and competition. I was usually captain of my teams, and I served on ASB when I was in high school. And I think some of you were treasurers. We talked about that last week. Because of school and work, I've lived all over California, but really found a home in Tustin, where I've lived for the past 30 plus years and where I raised my family. Um, Although I was kind of a shy kid, I found my place on the field, but I always felt like I had something to contribute. My mom didn't have an education, but she was always in my mind, a public servant. She was always the room mom. She often volunteered to be the seamstress for costumes and things like that, and worked the polls, those kinds of things. As a college student, I started coaching and continued to coach youth sports for about 20 years. As my kids grew up, I got involved in the PTA coordinating council, raised money for our local schools, etc. As a career, I worked in healthcare as an administrator, and this training in healthcare taught me to be an advocate. I grew up in public health. That was my first job. And I saw young girls, not much older than I was at the time, pregnant or at the well baby clinic. And while I was in healthcare, I also started teaching and then left the private sector to teach full time. I retired as the Dean of Health Science at a community college. I was elected to the city council here in Tustin in 2010. I served 2 terms. I stepped off and then was reelected in 2020. I was also elected, and I've elected for 2 terms on the Orange County Board of Education. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Becky. An amazing life. Yes, amazing service. Okay, so now we are going to go to Heather. And let me find you, Heather. All right. We have a lot of people on here. All right. Hi, Heather. I'm going to
Good
stop
morning.
and please.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm excited to be here this morning and speaking with you. I'm Heather Ferbert. I am a Chief Deputy City Attorney here in San Diego. I moved to San Diego 20 years ago for law school. I grew up in Orange County and moved here, started law school. And when I graduated, I knew I wanted to stay. I fell in love with this city. And I was fortunate to find a position in private legal practice representing a government agency here in San Diego that develops affordable housing and runs a lot of the city's housing programs. And I have always, throughout my life, been really fascinated by local government. I think local government has a really direct impact on all of our lives. If your trash isn't picked up, if you hit a pothole, you know, like how that's impacted your daily life. And I think what local government does is really important. And so I fell in love with the work of providing legal advice and doing the legal work of local governments. About 10 years ago, I changed jobs and I was hired by the city attorney's office. And the city attorney is an elected position here in San Diego. And about 8 years ago, the first woman city attorney was elected to office here in San Diego. And the city of San Diego has been around a long, long time. We've had an elected city attorney since at least the 1930s. So it was really amazing to see the first woman be elected. And about 2 years ago, I realized she's going to be reaching term limits. There's 8 years total term limits for the city attorney. And I started thinking about who should succeed her. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought it should be me. And so I am now running currently in 2024 to be San Diego's next second female city attorney. And so we are off to the races. There's a March primary, and it'll be finally decided in November. I'm really excited about the race. It's been a huge learning opportunity for me. I've done legal work for the government my whole career, and becoming a candidate has been really interesting. So I can look at it from both perspectives, as a public employee, public servant, and as a candidate running for office. And so I'm excited to be here this morning and share my experience. And I'd be happy to chat with anybody over email or separately if they're interested in legal careers and that path. So thanks so much for having me. I'm excited for this discussion.
Thank you, Heather. I'm excited for you. I'm excited to see another woman step into that position. So now, Angela Blanchard, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Oh, let's see here. My name is Angela Blanchard, and I'm a partner at Political Solutions in Sacramento. So our firm is a government relations and advocacy firm, and we are bipartisan. We are female-owned. We are the largest female-owned lobbying firm in the state, if not the country. And I focus primarily on health and human services issues, as well as state budgetary issues. And I've had the pleasure of working alongside many elected officials, and I love hearing about more women running for office. Go Heather. And, it is, my career was really, I came into it by accident. So I'm the first in my family to go to college. I had no idea that there were opportunities in and around government to have a career. I really didn't know what I was going to do. And it was through an internship through the University of California that I was placed here in Sacramento. And it was then with the chair of the Business and Professions Committee, who also happened to be the chair of the Legislative Women's Caucus. And I thought to myself, wow, like this is an opportunity. This is a career path. And let's just see where it goes. And, 22 years later, here I am. So very nice to meet all of you. I wish, as I was reading your syllabus for this program, I wish I had a program like this when I was your age. And so it's just a real pleasure to be here. And I look forward to answering any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. I am looking for Grisella and Dr. Davis. Are you on the call today? All right, so maybe they are not. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add Becky and Heather onto spotlights. I'm sorry, I have to look for you. There's a lot of people on here, and I'm excited that so many people are interested in hearing about what women are doing in politics. So Heather, I can't find you.
Hello.
There you are. Okay. So let me add the spotlight for you, and then I'm going to add myself, and we are going to get our conversation started. And I am so excited. So
Arnidra, I'll take a look. Keep scanning for our other speakers and add them once they get here. That way you could just focus on the panel.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So before we get started, I heard some conversations about education. So I really want to know, what kind of degrees do you have to have so that our students here who are listening, what kind of degrees do you have to have? What is the educational requirement to run for city council? What are the what are the requirements? Because sometimes we think that we have to go to college to make a difference. And I'm always going to tell you to go to college because college is important. But what can our students do now to change their trajectory of education and getting into politics? So can they get into politics now? Is that a suggestion? And because as high school students, sometimes we think, oh, I shouldn't say anything, I shouldn't speak up. So can you tell us, what are the educational requirements? And we'll start with Dr. Becky. Can you tell us what the educational requirements are to be a city council member?
Well, unfortunately, there are no educational requirements for a city council member, which is kind of unfortunate. But I would think that people that would aspire to that And especially at a young age, you kind of mentioned that. I would encourage young women, young people to go to their city council meetings or their school board meetings so that they can understand what's important and what's going on in their community. That's the education they really need, is to understand the issues and what's, what people are thinking, and at a school board, what parents are thinking, what students need. And in a lot of cities, especially larger ones, some of the school boards will have student trustees, or they'll have a youth commission or something along those lines that people can get involved in. And it sets their trajectory to, further serve in other ways.
Yes. Thank you. Angela?
So I was thinking about your question of educational requirements, and the women on my team come from a variety of educational backgrounds. So some studied undergrad history, rhetoric, English, of course, political science. We have those that have advanced degrees in MBAs, public administration. There really is no one size fits all for our profession. I would say about 1/3 of us are attorneys. The other 2/3 are either master's prepared through business or through, public administration. Some individuals have an undergrad and just went right into advocacy. For, young women who are looking to break into advocacy, one of my favorite interns, I run the internship program for our firm, and one of my favorite interns was a high school student. And now she's doing great things off at NYU. And I always ask her, are you ever coming back to California? So, it's never too early to get involved with, advocacy, with being involved with your community. I did a lot of community service as a youth, and was focused on through Girl Scouts, actually. And I did Girl Scouts until it wasn't cool anymore. And, I look back now and I think, wow, that allowed me the opportunity to meet adults in my community that really cared about the community and begin to get connected. Because what you'll realize, and I'm sure you may already be experiencing this, is through networking and through connections, you're able to really find that next opportunity. And so I would encourage all of you to volunteer. You're never too young to volunteer on a campaign. And, I see two really esteemed women here that are running campaigns and are involved, engaged at that level. And then certainly, there are internships as well. Once if and when you decide to go to a four-year university, there are opportunities there, but certainly you don't have to go to a four-year university to have those opportunities to be part of your community too.
Thank you, Angela. I always say that Girl Scouts creates two type of women: business women and advocate women, because they are no joke with those cookies out there in front of Albertsons. They're like, how many boxes would you like? I was like, how do you know I even eat Girl Scout cookies? But I bought 6 boxes. So yes, so Girl Scouts is a great way to prepare for your advocacy training and your advocacy life. Heather?
I would reiterate everything that's been said. It's never too early to get involved in a campaign. And I can't think of a candidate that I've met who doesn't have something for a volunteer to do. So if you find a candidate that you like, go for it and volunteer, whether it's door knocking or folding envelopes or making phone calls. You can learn a lot, and you can find out what their priority positions are. If you find somebody who aligns with what your goals are, I saw your really impressive list of issues that you want to focus on. And it's what I'm hearing a lot from voters. Personally and professionally, for my career path, you do have to have a law degree in order to practice law. So if you want to be a city attorney, either to effectuate criminal justice reform and prosecution reform within the system. And I've heard from a lot of law students, we have a lot of law student interns who think they want to be public defenders because they want to change the criminal justice system. And it was really interesting talking to a few who interned with a public defender and then came to our office and interned as prosecutors, and saying there's actually a lot more change you can effectuate as a prosecutor because you're the one deciding whether to issue charges and how those cases are handled, and how the government, the system is interacting with people who are suspected of a crime. So it's something to keep in mind. I would encourage, if you decide to go to law school, that's awesome. It's great. You can get any four-year degree and get into law school. So that's, you can pursue an undergraduate degree that interests you. I look back and wish I had done a psychology degree, because when you're working with clients, there's a lot of feelings and emotions involved. And so I wish I had had that background. I think it might have been helpful, but any degree really can suit you. I did international studies because it was what I was interested in, and had the ideas that I was going to be overseas. And then I really fell in love with local government and stayed here. So you can do anything to get into law school. And then, the government, like the internships, there's so many. If you look around, there's so many opportunities to get involved in areas that are passionate to you. And I would also recommend looking at some of the nonprofits that are doing advocacy work in issue areas that you're interested in. So, for example, in the gun violence prevention arena, there's some really great local nonprofits, one of which here in San Diego is run by teenagers and high schoolers who want to end gun violence on campus. And they're a phenomenal group of students. They do amazing work here locally. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's replicated throughout the state in other areas as well. So lots of opportunities to get involved now, and as you go throughout your education and start your careers.
So I just want to reiterate what was said, because I love this, that all three of you had a different perspective. So Dr. Becky said you should go to school, but you don't need a degree to be a council member. So sometimes we don't know that. We don't realize that to make change, we don't always have to have a degree from Harvard to make change. Making changes, like you said, Heather, right in your backyard, starting a group and talking about gun violence as teenagers. So sometimes we don't realize that we can make change right in our backyards. So I do have another question for you all, and I'm going to start with you, Angela. I want to know, what is the one most important societal or social or political issue confronting you or your position today, and how do you address that and seek a solution or a compromise? So here is where I want the girls to learn how to negotiate and speak up for themselves.
Oh, that's such a good question. So in my job, my role is to advise clients on how to achieve their goals. And so oftentimes a group will come to me and they'll say, we have an idea and we need to change the law. And this is what we think this idea should look like. And then it's my responsibility to prepare and execute a campaign to help them achieve those goals. And so, I have the privilege of working on amazing issues, issues that support women's health, issues that support behavioral health. I do a lot of work with children. As a working mother, I self-select into the issues that I represent, and I'm very proud to work on those. And in terms of my career and the issues facing us today, I really feel like the country is so divided right now. And that's been really hard for me to see because, as a government relations professional, I work with Republicans, I work with Democrats, I work with people that are declined to state or independent party. And I really feel like there's so much value that we can bring when we listen to other perspectives. And I think the issue that really is disturbing to me is just this political divisiveness where we have, in our country, two parties that are really far apart right now. And that is difficult because the reality is many of the policy issues that I work on are not partisan issues. Breast cancer affects everybody. Behavioral health, mental health affects everybody. Gun violence affects everybody. These aren't Democrat issues or Republican issues. These are everybody issues. And so I would say, Arnidra, one of my frustrations is just, it feels like things are becoming more divisive. And that's been really difficult to experience. And, I hope that, as we continue, we have the good fortune of living in an amazing state with leaders from both parties that really care about their communities. And so, I remain hopeful, but I would say that's the primary issue that I think a lot about.
Right. Thank you for saying that because sometimes we don't understand that issues are nonpartisan. That sometimes we can all come together and make change because being in one political party, whether it's Republican or Democrat, is not our identity. And sometimes we take it to the extreme. So we can all come together and make change that is of value to everyone if we would sometimes just listen to each other. Sometimes we don't know how to put on our listening ears and listen to one another. That sometimes is the issue. So Dr. Davis is here. We're going to bring her on and we're going to have her I'm going to spotlight her and then we are going to ask her I don't know why it's not letting me spotlight you, Dr. Davis. Okay, there it is. Add spotlight. So we are going to add you in and we are excited to have you. We're going to let you introduce yourself and then I'm going to ask Becky a question as you to give you time to get in on the conversation. So would you
Okay.
please introduce yourself for us?
Thank you, and forgive me for my tardiness. I did have a 9:30 this morning. I am Dr. Ayanna Davis. I serve as vice chair to the Compton Unified School District's Board of Trustees, and I also serve as an administrator for LAUSD. What else did you want me to say?
Whatever
I'm
you want
sorry.
to share with us.
Okay, so yeah, so I've been in the field of education for close to 30 years. 25 has been in school leadership, and I am grateful to share any of my expertise of what I know of as of today with anyone. So thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Thank you for being here with us. So um I'm going to ask this question, and Becky, this question is for you. Can you tell us what is one question a young person needs to ask herself before deciding to enter politics or a career in your field of being a politician, educator, a amazing life, Becky. But can you tell us what is some questions that you should ask yourself before you take on the responsibility of being a council person?
Well, I'm often approached by young women who are thinking about running. And the question that I ask them is, what is your why? Why are you doing this? Why do you want to run? And if they don't know what their why is, then that's a problem. Because if they don't know what their why is, how can they convince someone to vote for them or to support them? And the why is different for everybody. Because people will turn around and ask me, well, what's your why? And I said, my why is going to be different than your why. Why am I running? And I think that goes to, I hate to say the stereotypical, but it's often true if you talk to people. Women usually have to ask to be run, to run. Somebody has to approach them and say, I think you would be good in this position. Men don't do that. Men just think they're always qualified and they'll just run,
For
whether or not they are.
Yes.
But I think that you look for leadership. You look for leadership in your PTA, in your school, in your church. And then people usually get involved because of an issue. I first ran for city council. I just wanted to be a park and rec commissioner. That's all I wanted to do. But then I saw how that process went, and it really didn't make me happy. But I got involved and I decided to run for city council because there was it sounds so silly now, but it was a big thing. There was a new school being built, and the way they graded the property for the water runoff, there was a dispute between the city and the school district, and they decided to sue each other. And to me, that was like the dumbest thing ever because it was a waste of taxpayer dollars on both ends. And I had spent most of my adult life in the education system, volunteering as a PTA president, so on and so forth. And I just thought that was so stupid. So what did I do? I decided to run for city council to try to solve that problem. So I think you just have to figure out why you're running. Why do you want to do this? Because it's hard work. And, Heather can tell you, running a campaign is not easy. I can tell you it's not easy. You have to raise money. You have to give up a lot of time and effort. And so you have to figure out what your why is. Why do you want to do this? what's important to you.
And Becky, I'm glad that you said that because one of the things that I wrote on here when they go in their break rooms is I wanted them to write their whys. So I'm glad that you reiterated that because sometimes we don't say our whys. We just get up and do something because someone told us that we should do it. But why are we doing this? And what is the outcome of what we're doing? So, Heather, we're going to ask you a question now. I want to know about running a campaign. What is that like? Oh,
It is an adventure. So I'm running a campaign it's a citywide race in San Diego, and San Diego is the 8th largest city in this country. So it's a pretty big race. And Becky hit the nail on the head. It's a lot. It's a lot of work to raise enough money to reach voters, to give up your time. The first conversation I had when I started thinking about this was with my family because everybody needed to be on board with me running because it's not just me, it's my daughter and my husband and everybody in my life because you are giving up a lot of your time. And then there becomes this public spotlight on you. So, as a lawyer and as a government lawyer, I have spent my career supporting other people's ideas, supporting council members' programs, and the spotlight being on me for what I've done has been a growing experience for me because at first it was very uncomfortable. I'm not used to, and I think a lot of women do this, we're very used to being supporters. And so to be the one to be out there advocating for myself, my qualifications, my vision, my why I think this office matters and why I'm the right person for it, it was a big learning curve for me. So that's been really positive, really impactful on me personally and professionally. And I would recommend it to people who are interested in doing it. I wouldn't shy away from it. But go in understanding what you're getting into. Don't just run because somebody asked you. Really understand why you're doing it. Because Becky's right. If you can't tell a voter why they should vote for you, it's going to be that much harder. And then just my race has been pretty fascinating. I'm running against a very unqualified man and the imposter syndrome that like creeps in, right? It's fascinating how I continue to say like, what, maybe he should, and so there's a personal, like, you have to like be willing to do the work and know yourself really well, I think, to do something like this because you will constantly be questioning every step of the way. But that's what makes it interesting, and that's where I think it makes you a better candidate and ultimately a better public servant as an elected official because you really get to the crux of why you're doing it and why it matters. And for me, I love this community, and we need good, strong leadership in the office. This office is too important to leave to chance, and it's too technical to leave to somebody who hasn't practiced law in 20 years, for example, which is what my opponent is, where he's at. So it's been really interesting. You don't run because of somebody else, and I didn't. I got into this before I knew who was running, but it shifts and morphs, and it's a moving target. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, and you meet some really amazing people. It's humbling, and it's incredible. It's an incredible experience.
wow, thank you. So there's two of you running, just two.
Yeah, in my race, it's just the two of
Okay.
us.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right. Because sometimes I see ballots and it's 12 people running for the same
Right.
seat. And so it's two. That's
Yeah.
nice. Okay. So Dr. Ayana,
we have 10 minutes left.
okay. So Dr.
Yes.
Yarnana, I'm going to ask you a couple
Yes.
of questions. Yes. So I want you to tell us, what does the school board do? Because I feel like when racist, people will come out for the president, they will come out for city council, and then they forget about the school board. And the school board is one of the most important races. And it's important because it's our children, it's our future. So can you tell us what a school board member does, and how can our students here on this call today get involved in being more active in the school board in their city district?
Okay, so a school board member has three obligations. One is to make sure that we are fiscally responsible and making sure that the districts are not in receivership. So we have to make sure that we're balancing the budget and allocating funds appropriately. Try together, there's 7 on the board, so we all have to come together and, try to make sure that we're matching our priorities together. And secondly, we are the ones who evaluate the superintendent. And third, make sure that we're hearing our constituents and hearing our families in the communities and all stakeholders to bring to the table when we have discussions and decisions that will impact student achievement, as well as providing a workspace environment for employees to thrive. So how students can get involved, especially if you have young siblings or if you're a parent, attend the meetings, visit the school sites when you have the time, participate in the extracurricular activities, be involved so you are part of molding an institution that is so precious to our society, because this is where our students, where our children, our most youngest citizens in our communities are being prepared to be career or college ready.
All
So
right.
that's in a nutshell what we do.
Thank you, because the school board is a very important, and Dr. Becky was also a school board member, so she knows it's very important that we have safe schools for our students and that our students get educated so that we can produce productive citizens as they
Mhm.
of the education system. So our next question is, and this question is going to be for all of you. Can you tell me some of your dreams moving forward? Is there anything you're on a mission to accomplish? So we will start with you, Angela. Tell us some of your dreams moving forward.
Oh my gosh, that's such a big question. I'd like to continue to grow my firm and my practice here in Sacramento. I do a lot of work with other advocates and in the state, and I'd love to expand that to other states. I'm also really interested in getting more involved in foreign affairs, and I, for the past 5 years, have been engaged with the Northern California World Trade Center and most recently served as their chairwoman. And now I'm back on the board of directors there. And so I think, continuing to just expand my interests both for domestic as well as international affairs.
Wow, that's nice.
That's
So
yeah.
that's awesome.
I'm not really sure how to accomplish all of that yet, but that's my North Star.
Yes, and that's something that the girls can think about, being a chairwoman on the trade center. We don't think about those kind of things. I heard Dr. Becky say she wanted to be Parks and Recs commissioner. Being a commissioner, you don't have to have a degree, but you can make the rules for the park and recs and putting more programs in your neighborhood. So yes, so these are all very important positions. Thank you, Angela. Dr. Becky.
Well, I'm sort of on the downward slope of my career, but I still have things I want to accomplish. And one of those is getting more women involved in public service. And this is why I got involved in GovTrack. And I spend a lot of time with people who want to run for office. And I will just tell you, while I've been sitting here, I've already gotten a text from somebody who wants to run, who I've already talked to, and she's texting me to talk to me again. I talked to a candidate last night. And so it's one of those things that I would like to see more women, not just in politics, but also in leadership roles. More people in business and tech, education. And I will tell you that I was a dean of health science at a community college, and I would probably once or twice a month, I would get a call from a PhD student who was interested in talking to, as part of their dissertation, was looking at minority women in higher ed. And I would get those calls because there weren't that many of us.
Mhm.
And so I kept getting interviewed over and over, but it was from different people because they could not find people in those roles, find women in those roles. So for me, it's just trying to get more women and more women's perspectives into the public sphere. And I'll give you a couple of examples. When we were developing some of our parks, our developers were so happy that they got changing tables in the women's restroom. And so my response to that is, well, did you plan for the changing tables in the men's restroom?
Right.
And they looked at me like I was from Mars. And I said, well, guess what? You're putting a changing table in the men's restroom. We were looking at developing a new shopping center and we needed a grocery store to anchor it. I went to, and I didn't really even know that there were this many grocery store concepts, but I must have went to 7 or 9 different types of grocery stores to determine what kind of grocery store we wanted from a woman's perspective. I wanted fresh fruit. I wanted a good deli counter. I wanted certain things. And the men on my council were more worried about the beer selection in the liquor department. So it's those kinds of things. And they're small things, but they're important things for families and the people you serve in your community.
Yes, and we want a healthy community. So yes,
Right.
so we're thinking of that. Heather, so can you tell us what are your dreams? What's your next move?
So I'm not going to say winning my election because right now I feel very confident that I'm going to. So when I'm city attorney, I really want to increase the diversity in the office. I really strongly believe we have a lot of women lawyers. Government for women lawyers is great, but the diversity in LGBTQ, race, background, those areas, it's not as great. And we see this throughout the legal community. There aren't very many women partners in private practice. There aren't very many. A lot of women flock to government because it's much more family friendly. And if you want to do both practice and have a family, a lot of women migrate that way. But I want to see us really push to make more equitable decisions, more diverse decisions in hiring in government. And it's one of my top dreams is to just really increase that within our office, to see more women of color in leadership in our office and throughout our city and throughout the legal community, because I think it's an area where it's really lacking. And it's really concerning to me because we need representation, legal representation that looks like our community, because those people are bringing their lived experiences and their backgrounds to how they're prosecuting a criminal case or how they're representing or defending their clients. And so that really to me is a dream and a goal that I want to fight for as city attorney. And then my other dream, I'm a housing nerd. I grew up learning about housing. Housing is like a passion of mine. I want to increase the housing in the city. I want California to be affordable. I want my teenage daughter to be able to start a family here in San Diego and afford to have a home, whatever kind of home she chooses. And right now, with the cost of housing in our state, I'm concerned. I'm concerned about our teenagers and the kids that are coming after them and whether they'll be able to afford to live here. And I don't want to have to move to see grandchildren if she decides to become a parent, or grand fur babies if that's the way she goes. Like, I just want to be able to have her close if she wants to stay close. And I think that most parents want that, if that for their children to be able to stay where they were raised if that's what they want to do. And so housing affordability is a huge issue for me, and I want to use all the tools in the city attorney's power to help move that needle and come up with some creative solutions, because we're not there. So
Right. And
yeah.
I don't think that our high school students are thinking about housing affordability yet, because they're not paying into the homes yet, but thinking about housing affordability, what is that going to look like in 20 years? Because we're seeing people who work who are homeless now,
Mhm.
working homeless. So how do they advocate for their generation to make sure that they have adequate housing? Thank you for bringing that up. And so, Dr. Ayana, you want to tell us what are your dreams? What are your next goals and accomplishments moving forward?
My next goal is in 2026, I do want to run for state assembly. The current assembly member, he terms out and actually have selected me to be his successor. And he's done a lot of great work with police reform. And I would love to continue his work in that area and also bring a perspective to the legislators from a true practitioner in education. I know that there's a lot of bills that's on the table and being passed, and we feel, as far as the practitioners who are actually doing the work, there hasn't been any study group or any input from those who would have to carry out these bills, that we may feel that they sound great, but how it will actually look in the school sites may not be as they envision, because they're on the hill and we're actually in the sites. So I would love to be that voice in the assembly that speaks on true practitioners, that that one incident is supported a nonprofit organization that treats fathers who are struggling with addictions, and how important that is, because these are fathers whose students are in school systems. And we know that when families become whole, students achieve better in the classrooms. And a lot of people do not see that correlation. So when you're in assembly, when I'm in assembly, I'm speaking that into existence. When I'm thinking about funding, I can push for the various organizations who need the funding because it overall impacts student achievement. There is always a correlation with communities and families with the way students perform in schools. So that's my goal. My goal is to bring my expertise and my practitioner experience to lobby and put bills forth that ultimately can make families whole and impact student achievement.
Wonderful. Well, thank
Mm.
you. So we are going to, before we move to question Q&A, I actually let's move into Q&A and then we'll close out with what you guys want to leave your closing thoughts for the students. So does anyone have any questions? And I can't see all of you because you're spotlighted. So just feel free to chime in if you have any questions.
Actually, please go ahead and raise your digital hand and we can call on you.
Okay, you can do it. Okay, because I can't see them. Okay.
Come on, girls. I know you have questions for our amazing speakers. Don't be shy. Daisy.
So I had a question for those of you who are mothers. So how did being a mother sort of change your perspective of what issues you're really passionate about and what type of world you want your child to grow up in?
Good question. It's open to any of you to answer.
Well, I'll go ahead and start because my kids it sounds like my kids are a lot older than the rest of your children are. I think I was involved in lots of different things. Like I said, coaching and PTA while my kids were younger. And part of that was I wanted to do those things before I got into more public life. But I think it was Heather that mentioned that she had to talk to her family. I talk to my family every time I'm going to run. Even though I've been in those roles before, it's really important to have that support. So if your children are younger, you need to make sure you have support from your partner, from their grandparents, neighbors, friends, that kind of, you should always have that support no matter what. But when you run for political office or when you serve, there's a lot more time involved. So you just really have to have your support network out there.
Yeah, I agree. And I would just add that, being an advocate, sorry, my little one's in the background right now. Being an advocate, I'm really selective about what I take on, and I'm not going to represent issues that don't track with my values. So as a mother, I would never represent tobacco. People are free to do whatever they want in using tobacco. And I'm not saying that tobacco companies, shouldn't exist, but I'm saying I wouldn't represent them personally. Same with, gun violence. I mean, very clearly, when my kids come home and say they've practiced a drill for active shooter, which, as a 7-year-old, he doesn't call it that. He just tells me he had to hide under his desk. I mean, that makes me sick. And so those are the types of things that I would, as a mother now, especially, I represent issues that align with my values and my family's values. And, I feel like when you're in alignment with what you're advocating for, you're an even better advocate. So, when I stand up and I feel with conviction what we're advocating for is right or on the right side of the values of me and my family, it feels really good. And it's like a full circle moment. So I would say, it definitely plays a role. Being a mother plays a role in what I choose to work on and what I choose to represent externally.
Heather.
Yeah, I agree with Angela. A lot of the issues have become really important to me personally, have been based on my daughter's experiences. And gun violence is one of the top ones, and an area that actually the office I'm in and running for makes a lot of difference. So it's been really nice to be able to align my personal experience, dropping her off with gun threats on campus and dropping her off with school police there and driving away hoping that everything goes as they tell us it's going to go and that she's going to come home safe, and knowing that we can continue to fight for teenagers and our students not to have to go to school in those circumstances, because that is unacceptable in my book. And I think everybody on this call sort of is repeating that refrain. So yeah, it definitely changes your perspective, I think, and you learn from what your children experience and your own experiences as a parent through, and then how you effectuate that through your own advocacy, your own work, your own roles.
Dr. Ayana, you want to?
The same, as a mom, I'm a mother, I was a single mom, a divorcee, and I have a Black son. He's 28. And it does make, my focus with my dissertation was on, teachers supporting Black boys in public preschools. And, so my platforms, when I focus on or look at the data for research on Black male expulsion from schools and suspensions versus, the differences with their counterparts, you tend to use your life as your platform. For me, and my son is 28 years old, and so I had to prepare him with assembly. There could be some bad mailings going out. I will be attacked, and I have to go over that with my son, and he's my protector. So son, are you going to be okay with this? And, you're going to have to remain professional. He's a therapist, so you're going to have to give me therapy oftentimes. So the same, my life became my platform, so I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. Thank
Uh-huh.
How about Nina Rock? You have a question?
Yes, hi. I'm currently running for ASB president at my school. And for those of you who are running a campaign or who have been in trying to get elected for things, do you have any advice for running a campaign, even on the smaller scale, and especially when it comes to like showing your qualifications for something?
Can I start? I think
Yeah.
that the most important thing is be yourself. Don't
Yeah.
change yourself to get elected, because
Yeah.
people will see through it. Be yourself. Be confident
Mhm.
that people are going to vote for you for who you are, and that you are more than enough, and that you will do a good job. So be yourself, I think, is the most important thing I've learned personally. So that's my general advice.
Mhm. And I'll chime in also, and have a defined platform. Are you connected to the students, and what are some of their issues on campus? And what's your plan to remedy or support them with the overall issues that you hear, like a general issue for your student body classmates? That's my advice.
anybody else?
I
before
would
we-
just say the same thing. Be true to yourself. You have to look at yourself in the mirror the next day, the next morning. But understand why people are concerned about certain things. Is it because the lunch lines are too long or whatever it is at your school?
Mhm.
And how you can remedy that, or how you can get people to talk to you about what their solutions are that you can advocate for. So, be yourself.
Thank you.
Delisha?
Yeah, hi. I had a question. I wanted to ask how you handled any doubts from like your family or peers about your career choice. Because I'm a senior in high school and I do think I have like a really strong passion for law, especially international relations, because I really like Model UN. But my parents don't completely support that. They want me to do like STEM or like pre-med. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to ask for advice and if there was, if you guys handled any doubts from like family or peers about your career choices and how you dealt with that.
This may be my favorite question ever because, and I think all of us are like ready to come off of mute because we've lived this. So as the first person in my family to ever go to college, my parents didn't understand that I would waste my time doing things like sociology and women's studies and political science. And they're like, why don't you go be an accountant or a doctor or something that they understood to be successful? And I'll just tell you that I didn't listen to any of that clearly. And I ended up pursuing women's studies as my undergraduate because I liked it and I found enjoyment in what I was doing. And my advice to you is pursue what you enjoy and pursue what brings you happiness, because ultimately you will find success in that path. And subsequently, I mean, I don't want you to think my parents are horrible people. I mean, subsequently they've apologized and they've said like it all works out and wow, great job. But they just didn't understand, right? That wasn't their lived experience, and they wanted the best for me. And the best for me was what they understood to be like a socially acceptable norm of what you should be doing. So my advice to you is love your parents and pursue what you want to do.
Thank you. Yeah.
Does anyone else want to answer that? So
I'll
who's
take a quick shot at that.
Okay.
Well, that was no pun intended, but my parents, my mom had a 10th grade education. My dad had a high school education. They really didn't know how to help me. They just knew that I needed to get a college education. When I decided to get into politics, my mother and my father both had severe reservations because I had one uncle who was a mayor of a city in Southeast LA, who they tried to kill because he stood up for some corruption in his city. And so my mother knew I could never keep my mouth closed on something I believed in. And so she was deathly afraid that something would happen to me if I opposed something that people didn't like. So there was a lot of concern on my mom's part about that. And so I was constantly trying to allay those fears. But my mom lived to see me. My father passed away before I was elected. My mother got to see me sworn in for my first term. My mom passed away, sadly, between the time I was elected and the time I was sworn in on my second term. But she at least knew that I won, and she was happy at that point. But it can be very hard on families sometimes.
So, and Delisha, I want to say this. I participate in the Model UN. I actually teach Model UN now. And I even we went to the United Nations, etc. And my dad was like, I wanted to raise a lawyer. And I actually started off as a pre-law, but when I looked at how, because he couldn't understand why I was worried about what everyone else was doing. He didn't understand that international law, international issues affect us all. So, so I'm going to tell you to do what's going to make you happy, because in the long run, it's you that's got to do the work. Right. And so I have this degree and I could be at a corporate office making way more money than I do at a nonprofit. But the nonprofit is where I get the most fulfillment. And the nonprofit is where I see the most change. And so, yes, it's 80 hours a week versus, I could be working probably 20 hours a week. But you need to make that change, and you need to go to sleep at night knowing that you did that. So, so you have to kind of sometimes say, okay, don't talk back or anything, but say, okay.
Yeah.
And then go ahead and follow your passions, because at the end of the day, you got to go to sleep. So just keep that in mind. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. And so we have time for 3 more questions. So we are going to take Alana, then Mia, and then Grace. And then we're going to we're going to close out with some words from each one of our speakers. And then we're going to go into breakout rooms and you all can discuss what you've learned today. So Elena or Alana, you're going to go first.
I was just wondering, have you ever experienced any corruption or biases against you as a woman in the system, and how you have overcome that?
Yes, I'll start. Corruption and biases. So here's an example. When you're a Black woman, oftentimes when you're assertive, you're labeled as an angry Black woman. aggressive or angry Black woman. So there has been times where um, a group of my colleagues, and we are African American women with doctorate degrees. It's about 5 of us, and we were in a setting, and we were ridiculed because we're doctors, and a person referred us as, oh, they're Dr. Jekyll, Dr. Hyde, Dr. Lecter, Hannibal Lecter, who murdered his patients. You know what I mean? So because we were outspoken for students, we spoke against some decisions that were made from the district office against that we thought were not best for students, and we, spoke out against it, and we were ridiculed not only because and made mockery because of our education, but because we were outspoken. So how do we handle it? We did a formal complaint because some things you just don't let go, and you have to always advocate for yourself. And so we did a formal complaint against this person, and the district did find that person that they violated the anti-bullying, threat, and harassment environment policies and procedures. So it doesn't go away all the time. And I don't think that person would have said it if we were men. Yeah, I think it was because we were women more so than because we were all Black women. So you don't smile when things offend you. You don't brush it off and giggle and think, oh, it didn't happen. You address it with a straight face and say, I didn't appreciate that. I don't like that. And you always advocate for and protect yourself.
Okay. Anybody else want to comment before we move to Mia?
I would just say briefly, yes, I've been the subject of that, not corruption, but certainly bias as a woman and a woman of color. But I think more than anything, when we see it, we have to call it out, not just towards us, but if we see it happen to other people. When you are silent, you're basically condoning it. You are allowing that behavior to happen. So, I know it's tough. It can be difficult to call it out, but you have to, because if you don't, who will?
Right. Absolutely. Okay, Mia, what is your question? Thank you.
I was just wondering if I know a lot of you talked about what it was like to be like running as a candidate, but if any of you had any experience in or know anything about supporting and managing a campaign as like a campaign manager as opposed to being the candidate themselves.
Good question. Anybody want to talk about their wonderful campaign managers? Because you can't survive without your campaign manager.
Well, I've helped manage a number of campaigns and a number of candidates. I've helped them raise money, help them craft their message, help them work with their consultants. And as a candidate, it does help because you have a certain perspective. And, I have to tell candidates when they are getting advice that they don't agree with from some of their consultants, kind of what we said earlier, be yourself. It's your message, it's your name, your image on the line. And sometimes you do get bad advice because people that are consultants work in different places, and what might be good in Orange County won't fly in LA County or in Sacramento or in Oxnard. That's why you have to know your community and know what what will be best for the community and the people that you intend to serve. So being a campaign manager, you just have to kind of look at the totality of the race and the community that is being served.
I agree with all of that. I would also add that as on the campaign management side or consultant side, actually listening to the concerns that are raised by your client, your candidate is really important, and understanding that they're trying to be true to themselves. So I've had the experience, my team is fantastic, but they're men, and I'm frequently reminding them that I can't say that without being labeled the B word because I'm a woman, right? If I come across as too aggressive, too forward, too confrontational, I'm the big meanie who's picking on my opponent, for example. And I've always, as a lawyer, always been sensitive to that. So having that dialogue and then having a team who understands that the buck stops with the candidate and that you can understand and have that conversation about the pros and cons of taking a stand or doing something that ultimately, because it is the candidate's name on the line and their life. I think that dynamic is very, very helpful. I also think it's sort of a male dominated field still. And so getting more women on campaign support as managers and consultants is fantastic because we, as women candidates, have different needs than male candidates and bring different issues and concerns that come up, right? Like dealing with biases, dealing with perception that still exists on stereotypes of women. So yeah, I love it that you want to get into that. I hope that you do. That's fantastic, and go for it.
Yes. And so we are going to close the questions now and we're going to move on. And before I thank the panel, I do want you guys to leave some last words for the students. So for our scholars here. So please give them some encouragement, some words of advice as they navigate and move through their educational journey, their life journey, because life don't always end up where you think it should, or where you what you planned out. I used to have this little board when I was younger about how the steps of my life were going to play out, and they did not play out like that. Absolutely not. Nothing actually. I don't think anything on that board went my way. So so please give them some encouragement, words of advice, some closing thoughts and words for them that they can take into their careers, journeys, and educational paths. And Angela, would you start?
Sure. So I would just say to all you ladies, I can't wait to see what you're doing in 5 to 10 years, because you're already just being part of this program and as engaged as you are in your communities. I mean, it's really impressive. And I mean, my advice is, don't be afraid to think really big, and not just think big, but speak big. And if there are, dreams that you have or aspirations, I mean, not all of us came from, families that understood those aspirations. And my advice to you would be to find other mentors, other women and men in the community that, could help you as you look to accomplish those big thoughts.
Yes. Becky, Dr. Becky.
I would just say volunteer. Be an advocate for a policy or an issue that means something to you. Fundraise. And I don't mean big dollars, but many organizations have walks. The Alzheimer walk, the MS walk, for breast cancer, the Women's March. If you do a great job volunteering, there may be a possibility of a paid internship or an entry-level job later on when you're ready. And any way that you can get your foot in the door to see some of these issues, see how the organizations work, just to get yourself out there, and to find mentors, as Angela mentioned, that is really key. Someone you can go to, someone you can talk to, because maybe your parents don't quite understand what you're trying to do, and hopefully they do, but it's just another voice. I had some great mentors growing up, besides my parents, and they were very helpful throughout my life. So volunteer, that would be the last word.
Heather?
I think I would build off of what you said, Arnedra, that the path is windy. I very much am a product of that too. So to that end, be open to experiences or opportunities that are presented to you. And if it's within your capacity to take it on, considering if you need to say no for yourself, do that, please. But if you can say yes to an opportunity, and even though you might be on the fence about it, you never know where it's going to take you. I didn't go to law school thinking I'm going to run for office or I'm going to be a government lawyer. I went to law school because it felt like the next natural step, and the path was windy. And looking back, I wouldn't have changed a thing. So I would just say be open to what opportunities come to you.
All right. And Dr. Ayana.
This may seem very shallow, but here's the piece that no one told me at a young age with being prepared. have you a few blazers to the side, have nice outfits together for interviews, and just keep those to the side. Keep your resume up to date. So be prepared, because when the opportunity comes, preparation, opportunity equals success. Mentors, that's fantastic. Keep your good mentors. Keep your phone numbers, your business cards, and when you meet someone, 2 weeks later, reach out. It was nice meeting you. Send an email, a telephone call, a text. Build relationships. Have your network, outfits, resume, mentors.
Yes. I have 2 blazers in my car. So I'm
Keep them
always
in your.
ready to tell the
Yes.
story. I am always ready to tell the story, no matter where it is. PTA said we took a picture on the, and they said she's always photo ready. I'm like, yes, I'm always ready to tell the story. So yes,
Yes.
so we would like to thank you on behalf of AAUW GovTrack. We would like to thank you so much for coming today, for sharing your stories and taking your time out on a Saturday. Especially as you progress on this campaign trail, Heather, to talk with us. And so we are going to take a 10-minute break, scholars. We're going to take a 10-minute break, which means that we will convey and come back together at 11:25 because it's 11:15, and then we will go into our breakout rooms. Okay. So thank you all so much. And
Yeah.
we look forward to working with you and watching you all on TV get sworn in as you win your races. Thank
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Good
Good luck,
luck.
Heather.
Bye.
Yes, good luck, Heather. Yes. All right. So we are going to take a 10-minute break. Here, so as you take your deep dive and you discuss with your colleagues about these issues, you pick one as a team, pick one. I want you to touch on a couple of things. What are your core values and motivations? So if it's for voting rights and access, think about what is your core value and what is your motivation for wanting to make sure that everyone has access to vote. And then I want you to think about how do you navigate through various equity challenges such as gender, racial, pay equity, LGBTQ rights, whatever it is, your voting rights, but how do you navigate that? And so, once again, I'm inviting you to share what is your why, what you are passionate about, why you are passionate about these issues, and then discuss one topic that resonates with you. And I want you to explore, if you've had experiences, talk about that because sometimes we do things because of the experiences that we felt that we've had. Your beliefs, it could be a belief system or events that have shaped your commitment to advocating for this cause. So we are going to go into breakout rooms now and we will come back together at 11:45 so we can do our closeout.